Hey everybody, Hunter back again from Showtime Studios. Part number 2 of the video series on building a model kit. As you can see, we have the 39 wagon rod here. We're getting ready to open this thing up, and I'll show you some of the things to look for as you go along, as far as opening up the box and going through the parts and things like that. And then after we do that, we'll kind of do an overview of the kit. And then we will get into part number 3, which I think will start on, if I'm right about an AMT kit, probably start on the engine. So let's get this opened up and we'll go from there. The fun part, opening the kit. I think everybody loves this. It doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, it's always fun to open up a kit. All right. Let's see what we got behind door number 1 here. Set that over here to the side. All right, we have the instructions here and the decals. Some chrome parts, some tires, body. We're just going to get everything out of here and then we'll go through it. And I'll show you what I look for and give you some pointers, or as many pointers as I can. All right, we're going to set the box up here to the side right now. All right, first off, normally what I do when I open up a kit is I will get the instructions out and I will kind of glance through the instructions just to see what the assembly steps are and things like that. And this is a typical older AMT layout. And if you look down here in the corner, you will have a whole list of paint colors. Now, I recommended having the basic colors. Once you break the kit open, a lot of times when I'm in the hobby shop and I've touched the kit for, or picked up a brand new kit, not sure what colors that they recommend for it, I will open the kit up in the hobby shop since I'm going to buy it anyway, and I'll get the colors, and I'll go ahead and buy the colors while I'm in here. There is a lot of different colors on here for this particular build, so that's something you want to look for. And then it gives you the recommended tools, and we talked about some of them. The hobby knife, of course, and the liquid cements. And they're gonna, they're recommending tweezers in here. That's something I didn't go over in the video, but I have a whole series of about 20 different tweezers that I use. So that's something you want to keep a stock of as you get started. You don't need that right off the bat. Most models, you don't really need tweezers to, if you're doing a box stock model, for the most part, you don't really need a set of tweezers, but they will come in handy. So if you want to get them, that's great. So they give you a little bit of steps on here about the assembly, about painting, the decals, things like that. You want to read over that. And then we'll flip the sheet over to the first step, which is, like I figured, it was the engine. And then you do final assembly on the engine. You're going to move on to the wheels and tires, then the frame assembly, and then they continue the frame assembly, which is, the front suspension, the rear suspension, the exhaust, assembling the engine, putting it in. And then we flip on over to the other side and you do the interior. And then you will move on to starting the body, and then final assembly of the body, and then the final trim parts. And after that, you'll have a completed model. So always look over your instruction sheet, glance through it, study the steps, things like that. And, kind of familiarize yourself with what they want you to do. So that's the instruction sheet. Now we have the decal sheet, which is a pretty nice decal sheet. These decals look pretty thin, don't look too bad, but as a beginning modeler, I mean, this is something here that if you've never done decals before, there's a lot of steps to doing them. We will do all the decals on camera, and I'll show you all the tools that I use to do that. I've already mentioned the setting solvents, the micro set and the micro saw, so have those. And of course, you'll need a pair of scissors to cut these out, or you can cut them out with a hobby knife. And I always like to use a hair dryer on my decals, but we'll get into that when we got this project almost finished up and we're ready to put decals on the body. So that's the decal sheet. Next up, we have the chrome parts, and I'm going to go ahead and cut the bags open here, and we'll take a look at what's going on in the bag, what we have. Okay. We have the wheels on here. You have the grill assembly, the 4-link rear suspension, front and rear bumpers. Looks like I'm not sure what that is. Looks like it might be a tail light. The control arms are on here. The plenum for the fuel injections on here. The valve covers and the rear view mirror, license plates, or the license plate holders, the bracket. Now, this is where it gets into a little bit of a snafu, I guess you could say. For you guys that are just starting out, you can clip these parts off the tree and put them on your model, and you'll be good to go. There is flaws underneath of all kit chrome. There is mold lines, there's injector pin marks, there's flash. A lot of times these parts look pretty good, but as being a competition modeler, and if you're thinking about putting a model that you're building into competition, even if you're building your first model, if you're going to put it in a competition, a lot of times this chrome needs to be stripped and you have to redo it with a Spastics or an Alclad or, a Molotov pin or something like that. But I'm looking at what's on here, and what we may end up doing in this episode is just pretty much leaving the chrome as is. I'm not going to strip it. We'll put it on the engine, and I will probably end up toning it down with either a semi-gloss clear or a flat clear or something like that, and then doing some detail washes on it. So, yeah, but other than that, that's what you have. You have the chrome parts here. Like I say, if you're just starting out, clip these parts off the trees, clean them up just a little bit. We'll go ahead and put them on the model. For competition, that's a no-no. Okay, next up, we'll move on to the tires. They're in their own little sealed bag here, which is nice because I know a lot of the older kits did not have tires in the bag, and if the kit was sit around for a long time, the tires would become part of the body or whatever plastic it was touching. In this case here, we have the narrow for the front, wide for the rear. They're a Gatorback Goodyear pattern, and these will need a little bit of cleanup. We'll go through the steps on that to show you how to get rid of. Let me see if I can get the camera to. There we go. See if I can get rid of the seam line that's down through the middle of those. They always have molding lines in them. We'll show you how to get rid of that. So that's the tires. Okay, next, since it's right here in front of me, we're going to go ahead and open up the parts bag that has the body in it. And I don't know what else is in here. We'll find out. I see the body. Okay, we're going to set the body over to the side. Okay, we have the main frame in here. And I'm going to put my visor down here just so I can take a look at it, see what we got. It actually doesn't look too bad as far as sink marks and things like that. As we get into building, I'll explain a little bit more about sink marks, injector pin marks, mold lines, things like that. But this is the chassis. Overall, it looks pretty decent. We have the hood assembly, which has a mold line on it right here and a mold line right there. And I will also show that on camera, show you what I'm cleaning up. The body itself actually looks real good. We have KSDN, and I don't know if this white will show up on the camera or not, but it has KSDN wood grain in the plastic in between here. That's pretty cool, but the body looks pretty decent. Not a whole lot of mold lines, a few of them here and there. And then we have the running boards and the fenders all in one piece, which is real nice, real sturdy too. This is actually a decent little model. Now, I was talking about injector pin marks, and there's a whole bunch of them on the floor pan in here, but I'll show you how to kind of get rid of those as good as you can without doing any flocking or anything like that to finish covering it up. But you can see some little pieces of extra plastic. This all gets cut out of here. All these little round pieces gets cut out. But the chassis looks pretty good. Doesn't look like it's twisted. few mold lines here and there, not too bad. So that's what we have as far as the body assembly. And I'm just going to set all that over there right now. Set that up front. Okay, next up, we have the glass. Now, what I like to do with the glass a lot of times when I'm working on a kit is I usually do not take the clear parts out of the parts bag until right before I'm ready to clean them up and install them. Or do test fitting, and that's something else that we'll touch on along the way. I don't want to make this series overly complicated with trying to get a massive amount of information out there. I just want to help guys build their first model and maybe help out some of the guys that's done like a snap kit and want to do a glue together kit. That's what this is going to be about. But I like to leave the clear parts in the bag until right before we're ready to either test fit them or actually glue them in the model. And this model comes with tinted glass and clear glass, so that's pretty cool. So we'll see which one of them we use as we go along. Okay, and the last parts bag that we're going to open up here, or actually the last parts bag in the kit, get that out. We'll take a look at that. And another reminder is a lot of times, with these kits, you have to check the parts bag and make sure there's no other parts that's loose laying in the bag. Because like this piece fell out right here, but it's actually not a part. It's just one of the pieces that they add to the sprue. Like you got a little bit of flash right here. That's basically what it is. So always check your parts bags before you throw them out to make sure there's no parts left in them that came off the parts tree. So the first one we have here is the interior. These are the interior panels, the door panels, the rear panels. You have the seats in here, the rack and pinions in here, which looks like it's molded pretty good. Nice detail in it. You have the airbags for the suspension in here, the shocks, the fuel tank, all that stuff's there. Looks pretty good. Looks like a kit that we can work with. But like I say, we'll show you some of the cleanup stuff. There is a sink mark right here in the fuel tank that I see. So we'll try to get a good picture of that on camera to show you what a sink mark is for you guys that don't know. All right, next up we have the shifter, the spindles, the rotors, the backs for the wheels, and the steering wheel is all on this parts tree, and also the steering column. And I'm not really sure what that is. Looks like a hose of some sort or a bracket. We'll figure out when we get there. And the next parts tree is the exhaust, the rear end, and the drive shaft. And the exhaust is molded in one piece all the way back. It does have the hollowed out mufflers on the top side, but you won't see that. So clean up the mold lines on it, and I think the exhaust will be good to go. So we're looking good there. Looks like it's got a 9-inch Ford in it, rear end. And the last parts tree that we have is the engine assembly, the transmission, the radiator with the fans, real nice detail in those. We have the dash assembly, which is, believe it or not, that has a Corvette dash in it. This has the same dash that's in my 1-to-1 Corvette that I have in the garage. That's pretty neat. I didn't know that. And it actually looks pretty accurate, to tell you the truth. Yeah, for the most part, it's got one extra panel added to it that the Corvette does not have. But overall, it looks pretty good. And it does have the clutch pedal down here, brake pedal, gas pedals, all molded in with the dash assembly. That's pretty cool. We have the belts here, some piping, the firewall, the coil packs are here, the front half of the engine, the headers, and looks like the starter, the battery tray, oil pan. Here's the heads, the lifter valley. Actually, no, there's a starter because on the LT5 engine, the starter is in the lifter valley. I forgot about that. That was one of GM's brilliant ideas. You got to pull the intake off to get to the starter. But, and it does have a Corvette air cleaner assembled in it too. That goes over, or a radiator shroud. Yep, probably got Corvette radiator in it because that looks just like my 1-to-1 Corvette. So, it's always fun to look over your parts, see what you got, and it kind of gives you a heads up on what you need to do from that point on. But that's what I look for. I look for how many, two-piece parts that you have. Like this is a transmission, so you got to glue these two parts together, and then you'll have a seam line down through the center of them that you have to address. But we'll go through that on camera and show you how to do that. So that's, like I say, that's what I look for when I open up the kit, go through the parts tree. We'll go back to the instructions. Normally, I don't follow the instructions to a T, but in this case, we'll go ahead and take the instruction. And the first step is the engine. So that's the first step that we're going to do, and we'll keep everything as simple as possible. So that's it for this video. If you have any questions or concerns, leave me a comment on it, and I'll be more than glad to answer your question or see if we can make this series a little bit better. So that's all we've got for this time around. Stay tuned for part 3 coming up, where we will start gluing the engine together. So until then, I want to thank everybody for watching, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.